Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's second part of our campaign tutorial from Death and Taxes book supplement for the Baron's War Rules, we're going to talk about now the actual campaign sequence and how it works. In the first part, as you can see here in the profile of a commander, we talked about, as you can see, the chivalry rating, how we generate the campaign objective, the retinue leader relationship with his bannerman, and the attributes from the army lists of the Baron's War, various supplements, the supplies. We decided if they're royalists or rebels, and we have a complete background story for the commander. Specifically, this one is William Marshall, 2nd Earl of Pembroke. I would suggest, if you're interested, to watch part 1, and by watching also part 2, you will get a very good idea of how the campaign works, because this is the campaign. These campaign rules will be the basics, will be actually the rules I'm going to use for my eagerly anticipated, I'm happy to see, Baron's War campaign starting next week. So without any delay, we finish all this, and we'll go to the actual campaign year table. Now, the campaign year table is basically the 12 months of the year, so we have 12 rounds. As you can see here, January is one round, February is second round, but January and February are considered a season. And as you can see here in the red bar, end of season report to the courts. We're going to talk about this a bit later. Then you have March, April, and May, and then again report to the courts. June, July, August, then you report to the courts. Obviously, if you're a rebel, you report to the French court. If you are royalist, you are reporting to the English court. September, October, November, and then December is the last month, the last round, and you ending the campaign. So we have basically 12 rounds. Every round has a weather table. We talked about it in this previous video. And that's how the campaign works. So what every round contains, let's see the specifics. So you start by phase 1. So you do the weather events, the movement, roll for initiative, weather events, random events, consume supplies, move all banners. So we talked about the previous one, consume supplies. As we said, we roll for supplies. We have a specific number of supplies. Every move is that a commander takes is -1 supply. This is not that straightforward, and because depending on the tile you're on, there is a different movement rate, minus or plus, and sometimes you spend more supplies. As you can see here in this table, if you roll a 1 on a d6, you move 1 hex. If you roll 2 to 4, you move 2 hexes. If you roll 5 to 6, you move 3 hexes. But again, depending, as you can see here, of what type of hex you're moving through, if you have an unforded river, or if you're moving through a forest or woods, or here, for example, rocky outcrop or swamp, you have positive or negative modifiers. Also, hexes influence the supplies, but we're going to talk this later. So you do your moves. We saw that you roll a d6, and depending to what you roll, you move accordingly, and then you challenge your neighbors. So let's go to the campaign map. You can use the actual generic campaign maps that the game provides for free download in Warhost. So if you are in an adjacent hex with your opponent, if you have the initiative, you can challenge him to a battle. The player with the highest initiative, with the highest, chivalry rating, challenge your opponent. Your opponent can obviously accept the challenge, and then you move to the same hex and you fight the battle, or he wants to escape and he moves d3 exactly away from you. This is not the best thing unless you have a very, very specific reason for not fighting, or a strategy, because by not accepting a challenge, you lose a chivalry rating, so you go to -1. If both commanders decide to fight, then you fight the battle on the battlefield, and depending on the result, if it's a major victory, the winner gets 2 chivalry rating. If it's a normal victory, it's 1 + 1 chivalry rating. The loser gets a -1. As soon as you lose, you're pushed back again d3 to the opposite direction from the tile the battle was fought on, and the winner moves to the and captures the hex uh, that was contested. Then after you finish the battle and you have victory or defeat, you have the contesting territory. That's quite interesting for us to discuss. So there's two ways to contest the territory, and why it's important to contest and capture territory, even if your objective is not territory. Your objective could be something else. It has to do with supplies. So let's start and see how you contest the territory. There's two ways of contesting a territory. One way is by winning a battle. So as you can see here, let's say the battle was fought in the captured hex tile. This is where the battle falls. This tile becomes immediately part of your domain. And then you roll a d3. By rolling a d3, you will see how many extra hexes also you will capture adjacent to the hex where the battle was fought. So if you roll a 2, it's 2 hexes. If you roll a 3, it's 3 hexes. And then you roll a d6. For each result, you see the author numbers the hexes around the captured hex 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you roll a 2 and a 5, you capture also hexes 2 and 5. So a battle is the fastest, the easiest, and the best way to capture more territory. But there is another way to capture territory without a battle, and that's it when you are on a tile that is owned or even neutral. You can contest and you can capture the tile by rolling a d6. If it's a neutral territory, as you can see here on the right, if you roll 1, 2, 3, or 4, the territory is captured by you. Obviously, there are modifiers depending on how many battles you won at that specific season, and if this tile is bordering with your area, so you get more negative modifiers, so it's easier for you to achieve these numbers. If you roll above 5, that means that the peasants there, the neutral lord fought back, and the territory was defended, and you don't capture it. Now, if the territory is owned, but you're not fighting, it's again the same situation, but it's a bit more difficult. You need to roll 1 or 2 in order to capture it. From 3 plus, it's defended. Again, you have modifiers depending on how many battles you fought or how many adjacent hexes belong to you or your opponent. Then you find their final die roll and you roll it, but anything above 3, the area is defended. These are the two ways where you can capture territories, you can capture hexes without having a battle. Now, why is it important to capture hexes? And this is very important. This is because it has to do with supplies. Now, if we go back to the actual game sequence, you see contesting territory, and then in phase 3 you go foraging for supplies. Now, in order for you to forage for supplies, two things must apply. In order to forage for supplies, you have to have a non-broken line between your current location and the location of your camp. We haven't talked about the camp. Every commander with his bannerman stands from a camp location, and the hexes around the camp, so you can see here the blue camp, are your starting territory. So you can see the blue knight while he's moving. In order for him to be able to forage, in order for him to get supplies, he must have an unbroken chain from his location to his camp. And that is very important why you need to capture territories. So in these specific circumstances, you count 1 supply for every hex. And sometimes, depending on what type of hex this is, it could be, woods, it could be a village, you get more than 1 supply. So this knight can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 supplies for this part of the game. Now, there is another thing. You cannot forage for supplies if you fought a battle or if you contested a territory, even if you contested and you captured it without a fight, just by rolling a dice, as we saw previously. So it's very interesting that by having 3 commanders, maybe one can be responsible for creating the supply lines. He must not fight, he must not contest territory that round in order for him to get supplies. Now, these supplies he's getting, he can distribute accordingly to all three commanders, so it's not only for him. But this is a nice strategic option where you fight battles, you contest territories, but only the commander that hasn't done any of the above, or what we mentioned, can forage for supplies. I mean, yeah, it makes sense, and it provides, a strategy. Who will forage for supplies? Who will fight? How you will move your commanders accordingly. Something I need to mention is that when you win a battle and you accept your chivalry rating, that you get plus or minuses depending if you won or lose. If you're the winner of the battle, you roll a d6 and you steal the number rolled for supplies from your opponent. So this is another interesting and very important part of the battle. You can steal supplies, and this is actually part of some objectives: steal as many supplies as you can from your opponent, and then you can distribute them accordingly to your other bannermen. So if we go back to the game sequence, now we forage for supplies, now we go to intrigue and plots. Now what's in intrigue and plots? Now commanders who haven't fought the specific season, and to remind you here, you see on the other side, one season is, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons. So a commander who hasn't fought at all for a season has to roll two d6s in order to see intrigue and plots. And because there's something fishy of a commander not fighting a whole season, there's something going on. So what you do, you roll 2d6s, and let's say you roll a 3 and a 5, you roll a 35, you go to the intrigue and plots section, and you check, and let's say we go to 35, and this is connected. Connected, what does it say? For example, it says you're woven a web of contact that can be called upon in times of need. You gain additional 1d3 supplies each season until the end of the campaign year. So every commander who hasn't fought at that one full season, he will be able to roll intrigue. Obviously, intrigue has negative as well, negative events, and it's not only positive. So then you finish with the intrigue, you go to the housekeeping phase, where basically you complete the rosters, what victories you've done, you check the chivalry rating, you reduce it or you add it, you check your supplies, you just check and all the numbers, and this is the end of the season. Now, at every end of the season, you have to go and do, as you can see here in the campaign table, report to the courts. And what's report to the courts? Basically, you're reporting to your liege. So let's say you go and report to the courts, and you have to check a couple of things in order for the courts, for you, the king, to be satisfied or be unhappy with you. So you go to the courts and you compare the results of the most recent season among the players. So every season is from zero. So every season it's a different result. So if you are the player who won the most battles, you are ordered and you become a magistrum armorum, master of arms. If you are the player with the biggest net gain of tiles, you become a domino militaris, a master tactician, and this is the title you add to your roster. By getting this style, let's say titles, you roll in the titles and rewards table, and this has positive modifiers. So if we roll, for example, an 8, we get and we say you're a baron of, and you get a +1 chivalry rating. So you get bonuses depending on your achievements for every season. Every season is regenerated and it starts, I think, from scratch. So this is approximately how the campaign works, a general idea of how the campaign works. If we go back and we see and we do, let's say, a very quick run through, So you roll for initiative, you determine the weather. The weather influences movement in the campaign map, but also on the battlefield. Random events that you roll every time that have positive and negative, let's say, results. You consume supplies, one supply approximately for every move. Um, Depending on also the tile. You move all your banners, you challenge your neighbors. If your neighbors don't want to challenge you, they lose a chivalry rating. If they agree on the challenge, you fight a battle. Depending on the victory and defeat, you get +1 or +2 extra chivalry rating. Your opponent gets a -1 and he's pushed back D3. Then you contest the territory. We said the territory contested in two ways. One is that if you win the battle, you gain the hex that you fought the battle, and you roll a d3 to see how many hexes around it you captured as well. If you contested territory that without a battle, depending if it belongs to your opponent or if it's neutral, you roll a d6, you add the modifiers, and this area belong when you capture it or you don't. Then you go to the foraging table for supplies. The commander that has not fought or has not contested territories can forage for supplies, approximately one supply per hex, but only if he has an uninterrupted and unblocked let's say, line between your camp, and his location. And then in the commanders, you that they haven't fought have to roll in the intrigue and plots. Something I have to mention that plays an important role in the strategy of the campaign is that when you fight a battle, before you fight a battle, you have to allocate supplies to your units. So if you have 10 units, you have to allocate one supply for every infantry and two supplies for every cavalry. If you don't have enough supplies you need for all your units, you have to go to the foraging table. The foraging table is basically a table that you roll and to see if these units that you don't have enough supplies for have found any food or not. And you can see here the foraging table: 1 to 5 slim picking, 6 to 7 decent fare, 8 to 9 a veritable feast, 10 a golden goose. And depending on what you roll, they will have negative, let's say, results on the battlefield, or positive. So for example, if you find slim pickings, the units will be wary. But this foraging table will be only for the units of your army that your current supply number cannot accommodate. So for the extra units, you don't have enough supplies. So you can see by basically a battle, you can spend most of your supplies. That means that you cannot go all out to fight a battle because you're not going to have enough supplies. You need to, pull back, go back to your camp and resupply. Your camp resupplies, I think, automatically. And or you need to have a defensive strategy depending on your supplies. You cannot go in an all-out attack because you see how many supplies you spend for a battle. So this is from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you understood the sequence of the game and how it works. I would say this will be the rules I'm going to use in my campaign. We're going to have 12 videos, one video for every campaign round, and we're going to use these campaign rules of the death and taxes. Check the video, the first part. It has all the other important parts of the game that we're using, as we said, all the history and all the objectives, and you'll be able to follow the campaign much easier. So that's for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comment section of the video below. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.